Flashing lights take us to Carol Bennell in an abandoned hospital where she is looking for medicine. She takes some tablets to stay awake while someone starts to open the door. She's afraid of something which we'll know later in the story. We then see a space shuttle crash and fall to Earth. Its debris falls in many places in the world, but most of it falls in the state of Washington, USA. Experts advise people not to touch it because it's contaminated. Very soon the army sets up camp in these places so that if there is any threat, it can be covered quickly. Dr. Tucker Kaufman arrives at the camp and tells them that I want the complete documentary. Kaufman discovers a fungus-like alien life form but doesn't believe it yet. He orders them not to leak the information before completing the research. Tucker is about to leave and a girl gives a piece of falling debris. As he grabs it, his finger gets injured, causing the piece to fall, and he leaves. He reaches home and tries to love his dog, but the dog runs away seeing him, which he finds strange. After which his wife tells him that your ex-wife has called twice, but he ignores her. Tucker says, I'm going to sleep because I have to go back to work at 6 o'clock. After some time his wife also changes her clothes and goes to sleep. Late night, Tucker writhes in pain as his face is covered with spores. Carol awakens to hear her son Oliver's screams and rushes to his room. She finds him feared because of the nightmare, but she manages to calm him. The next morning, after preparing breakfast, Carol receives a voicemail that her ex-husband is trying to contact her. She calls him and we see Tucker alive, telling her he wants to see Oliver. Carol refuses at first, but when he talks about a legal notice she says that she'll think about this. It seems that the infection didn't harm Tucker. After that, she goes to drop her son off at school and Oliver wears a Superman costume for the Halloween party. She then meets her friend Dr. Ben. Ben tells her that 50 scientists have resigned over the shuttle debacle. Ben is a biologist and is quite upset by the accident, but Carol tells him to keep his mind cool. Carol tells him that her ex-husband returned to town and wants to meet Oliver. Ben says he's father, but Carol says she doesn't trust him. Ben drops her at work and invites her to dinner tomorrow night. Carol buys some magazines and enters her clinic where Carly tells her that your patient is waiting for you. Carol is a psychiatrist and meets her patient Wendy. Wendy is looking quite terrified and crying, indicating that something really bad happened to her. Carol asks her about the problem and she tells her that her husband reacting abnormally. Wendy says he's not showing any emotion like before. Wendy and her husband's relationship deteriorates and she is disturbed by his changed behavior. Carol says he might want to change himself so he can get rid of these problems. Wendy says no, when he came home our dog was barking at him and he grabbed the dog by the mouth and killed it. He threw it out without showing any emotion, like it was no big deal to him. Carol writes her some medications and asks her to call if anything goes wrong. At home, she asks her son if he's nervous. Ollie says he's not nervous, but there he'll keep texting her. Carol is upset because she has never been without her son. Afterward, Ollie and the other kids enjoy the Halloween party. Carol tells one of her neighbors, Pam, that Oliver has been having nightmares ever since his father called him. Suddenly, a dog starts barking at kids. The dog stares at Pam's son Gene and then the dog runs toward the kids. Gene grabs the dog's mouth with his hands just like Wendy's husband. Gene's ear gets injured and Carol gives him aid. Carol asks Pam about Gene, but she asks her not to be a doctor. Then Oliver starts screaming and there is an organism in his hand. Carol takes the organism to Ben, who says it must have been bought by a kid at the store. They take the organism to Dr. Stephen in the lab, who can't understand it. A dangerous flu virus spread all over the globe. Kaufman says in the conference that we have found the antidote to this virus. During the press conference, 2 waiters vomit white larvae in the coffee jars. Carol finds a man writhing in pain on the road and leaves. All this is happening because of the alien organism in the shuttle crash and everyone is unaware of it. This virus doesn't change the shape of humans, it just changes them emotionally. Carol reaches her office and finds Wendy's husband. The man tells her that my wife isn't home and she'll be here anytime, so he's here to take her back. Carol calls Wendy, who tells her that she is outside her office. Carol says your husband is in my office and Wendy returns telling her to keep him distracted for a while and hangs up. After that, Carol is driving her son to Tucker's and they see a woman crying on the road. Suddenly, a man runs over the woman and she dies. Carol runs to help her and then the police arrive and tell her to leave. She tries to tell them that the man runs over her in front of her eyes, but the police don't listen to her and ask her to leave. Carol sees the man with no emotions on his face and doesn't even get out of the car. They reach Tucker's house and she tells about the accident. Tucker asks her to come inside, but she has to attend dinner and leaves. She tells Ben about the previous incident and says that the police did nothing. Seeing her situation, Ben asks her if they cancel the dinner, but she refuses. She watches a video clip from Oliver, who is playing with his friend Jean, which gives her some relief. Afterward, Ben introduces her to his friend Dr. Henrik and his wife Luddy. At the dinner table, Carol has a debate with Russian Ambassador Yorish. Yorish argues that given the proper circumstances, anyone is capable of any crime or atrocity, and that a world without violence would be a world where human beings cease to be human. Carol gives him very generous answers and ends the debate. Then Ben takes her home and in the car, they kiss. Carol quickly backs away and says we're just friends and leaves. Inside the house, she texts Oliver and hears a sudden knock at the door. She goes to see and finds a man who asks some questions for the census department. Carol hesitates and asks him to wait. The man tries to come inside, but she manages to hold the door and the man leaves. She tries to call Ben, but the network is disabled, but she manages to send him a voicemail. The next day, she sees Ben in the kitchen, who makes her some pancakes. Going to her office, she sees everyone standing without any emotions. Reaching the office, she calls Wendy, but her husband picks up the call and tells her she is fine. Carol searches on the internet that my husband isn't my husband and my son isn't my son anymore. She also remembers the inappropriate behavior of Tucker and Jean. Carol's assistant asks her to drink coffee, but before she can take a sip, Dr. Steven calls her. She reaches out to Steven, who discovers how the spore takes over the brain during REM sleep. They also find that people who have had brain-affecting illnesses, such as encephalitis or edema, are immune to the spore because their previous illness prevents the spore from latching on to the brain matter. Oliver is immune to the spore because he had edema as a young child. Carol decides to get her son, who might show a way to a cure, back from Tucker. Before she drives to Tucker's house, she joins Ben's team, who are called to the Belichick's house in case of emergency. There they witness Yorish's transformation. When Carol arrives at Tucker's house, he and several colleagues close in on her. He explains that the changed humans, devoid of irrational emotions, are offering a better world and asks her to join them. When Carol resists, he knocks her to the ground and infects her by spitting his saliva on her. She escapes and returns to Ben at the Belichick's house. They flee when Belichick returns with more transformed people intent on infecting everyone in the house. Steven and one of his assistants head to a base outside Baltimore, where they and other scientists attempt to find a cure for the alien virus. Carol and Ben separate to find Oliver, who texts Carol his location, the apartment of Tucker's mother, Joan. Carol makes her way to Joan's home, pretending to be one of the infected who are now in the majority and are systematically raiding the cities in search for the few non-infected humans left. Carol manages to free Oliver but gets caught by her friend's son. While trying to flee, they get spotted by Tucker, who pursues them along with the others. Carol and Oliver seek refuge in a pharmacy. Tucker gets in and tries to find them, only to get struck on the head by Carol. There she takes an assortment of pills, knowing she and her son are safe as long as she doesn't fall asleep. She sends a message to Ben informing him where to find her. Finally, Ben arrives, but Carol realizes that he, too, has become one of the infected. He tries to seduce her to give in to the new society, and the others join him, but also frankly states that there is no room for people like Oliver who are immune. Carol kills the others by shooting, and as for Ben, she shoots him in the leg with a pistol she stole earlier from a transforming police officer, and flees with her son. With the infected closing in on them, Steven picks them up with an army helicopter at the last second. They head back to the base, where scientists use Oliver's blood to create a vaccine. 1 year later, most victims of the infection have been cured, having no memory of the events that took place during their illness. Asked by a reporter if he considers the virus to be under control, Steven replies that a look at the newspaper headlines should be proof enough that humanity is acting human again. Carol helps her son to get ready for school, while Ben, now her husband, they wear matching wedding bands, reads the morning newspaper. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing videos.